So today we're going to start a new skill, and this is called a parenthetical citation. And a parenthetical citation is whenever you are citing someone else's work within a paragraph of your own, within a writing of your own. So this year in language arts, we are going to be following something called MLA formatting, and that stands for Modern Language Association. This is a formatting for pulling quotes that is going to follow you to the high school next year, and it will also follow you to college if that is something that you plan on doing in the future. So when you're using your own piece of writing and you are referencing a specific line from a text, it could be from a poem, it could be from a short story, it could be from a novel. In this case, it's a memoir. We're going to be practicing this parenthetical citation in an MLA format with our memoir that we read, which is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, an excerpt by Maya Angelou. So, the first thing you do when you are creating a citation is you find a piece of the text that you want to quote. So whatever piece of text you're pulling depends on what you're writing about in your own personal writing. So I'm just doing an example here, and I'm writing a little bit about the vocabulary that Angelou uses in her work. So my own writing, I started off with, our author, Maya Angelou, uses many interesting vocabulary words in order to explain pieces of her memory from her work, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This is all me. I have written this. But now I'm ready to give an example from the text. I'm ready to pull a specific line that's not my own, but it's from our memoir. So I'm going in and I'm looking for something that goes along with the content of my own writing. So I'm looking for an interesting vocabulary word. So here I'm choosing to use couched. And we know that to couch yourself is to express your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings well with words. That's good couching. So I think that's a really good vocabulary word. I think it's interesting. So now I'm going to pull a quote or a citation. I am citing the author's words, and I am going to do this in an MLA format, Modern Language Association format. It's a format that will follow you through your educational career. So the first thing I do in an MLA format is I introduce the quote with my own words. This is called a lead-in. The lead-in is you introducing what that line is going to be about. So here, my lead-in is one example from the text of a line that has an interesting vocabulary word is. So every time you're pulling another person's work, another person's words, and you're putting it into your own writing, you need to introduce that quote with a lead-in. The second thing that is in the MLA format is going to be including a comma, this specific piece of punctuation, after your lead-in. There will always be a comma after your lead-in. Now we're ready to drop in the author's words. But before we do that, we also need to include a punctuation mark that indicates that this is pulled directly from our text, our source, our memoir. So this is another piece of punctuation, and this is called the quotation mark. So we use quotation marks for quotes. That's perfect. Okay, now we're ready to pull the author's words. So we go into the text, we find what we want, and then we type or write out the author's words, So I'm going to color code this blue. The author's words should be exactly as they appear in the text. Now, if there's a section in here that you don't want and you want to pull it out in the middle of the quote, you can do that, but you're going to use what's called an ellipses, 3 dots, ... That shows that something has been taken out of the author's original words. And you use those in the middle of citations or quotes. I'm not going to do that here, but I'm just showing you that that is an option for you. Now, it's very important that when you get to the end of the quote, the end of the author's words, that you do not include the period. There is no punctuation inside the quotation marks, unless it is a question mark or an exclamation point. That's called special characters. So if there's a special character in there, you keep it there. But other than that, when you get to the end of the author's words and you see punctuation, kick it out. Kick it out. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what if there's a period somewhere in my quote because there's multiple sentences? Those ones stay in there. The only period that you're going to kick out is the one at the very, very end before you end the quote. Okay, after you get to the end of the quote, you are going to close the quotation with another quotation mark. This quotation mark here is indicating that the quote is done. The section that is the author's words, someone else's words, is complete. And then we have what's called the actual citation. And the actual citation is going to let the reader know who the original author is, as well as what page it was found on. That way, if the reader of your work wants to go explore this source in more detail and read the rest of it, he or she can find it. So this piece here is called the citation. So the citation is made up of parenthesis, author's last name, space, page number that it was found on, end parenthesis, and then we, at the very end of our citation, we're going to have one last piece of punctuation, and that is a period. Okay, so you'll notice that all of this is the author's words. I'm including it within my own work, and I'm using a format that is called a parenthetical citation in MLA format, Modern Language Association format. So now, once you pull a quote from the author's text, you're never going to just drop it and walk away and leave. You always have to end the thought with your own words, because this is ultimately your piece of writing. You're just referencing one tiny piece of someone else's work. So here you have to continue. Why did you pull that quote? Why are we looking at this piece of text from the author? What is it doing for you, for your writing? So here I put the vocabulary word here that adds impact is the word couched. I learned that to couch yourself well is to express your thoughts and feelings well with words. Maya Angelou herself is very good at couching herself, as evidenced by her wide array of vocabulary used to paint a picture for the readers. So, this is a parenthetical, it's inside a paragraph, citation. I'm citing another person's words, and it follows the MLA, Modern Language Association format for pulling quotes. Once again, we start with a lead-in. A lead-in is going to be your own words introducing the author's words. I color-coded that yellow here. At the end of the lead-in, there's always a comma. Comma. That's our punctuation, and it leads into the author's words. So next we have quotation mark to show that we're pulling someone else's words, quotation mark. Then we're dropping in the author's words. Here I've color-coded my author's words blue. At the very end, when there's punctuation, you kick it out. It should not be in there unless it's a question mark or it's an exclamation point. In that case, it stays in the quote because it's necessary in order to show emotion, to show that it's a question or that it's exclamatory. Then, when you finish the author's words and you kicked out that punctuation, you have a quotation mark. The quotation mark ends the author's words. Next up is the citation. This is pulling where exactly you got that quote from. So to create the citation, again, parenthesis, author's last name. Please make sure your author's last name is always capitalized and spelled correctly. Space, page number, end parenthesis, and period. Notice here that I didn't write out page number 8. It just is an 8. I didn't put a pound sign or a hashtag for number 8. There's none of that. It's just the number of the page, 8. So this formatting is what we're going to use all year long, and we're going to be doing a lot of literary analyses. We're going to be dissecting texts and pulling lines and looking at them and discussing why they're important. And so it's very, very critical that you watch this video and that you refer back to it if you're confused or if you need help. So I'm going to post this under helpful resources, and so you can click there in order to access this video. It's also always going to be on the YouTube channel for you, and that is something that you are going to most likely reference multiple times this year. So if you have any questions, let me know, but we are going to be using parenthetical citations in MLA format all year. We introduce the author's words with our own words. We get to the end and there's a comma. Beautiful. Quotation marks. Ooh. Now we have the author's words. The author's words. Ooh, nice. We get to the end of the author's words. We see the punctuation and we kick it out. Nice. Beautiful. We get to the end of that and there's a quotation mark. Time for the parenthetical citation. We start with parentheses, author's last name, page number, end parenthesis, and a period. Woo! Beautiful.